Good afternoon, students. Welcome to lesson 1 of the course Communication Skills. The course code is LLS 152. LLS 152. In this lesson, we shall take a look at the concept or definition of communication. And then we shall also find a working definition of communication. So, in this very lesson, we shall take a look at only 2 of these definitions. After that, you can find your own working definition of communication. Communication is the act of conveying meanings from one entity to another through the use of mutually understood signs, symbols, and rules. We are saying that it is an act of conveying meaning from one entity to another. If I have something to tell you, whatever means I use in communicating that information to you should be understood by you. That is why when it comes to the use of signs and symbols, for example, those who are hard of hearing should mutually understand each other. They should equally understand the rules that govern the use of signs. So communication, as it were, is not for those, the hearing only, but it is also for those who are hard of hearing or the hearing impaired. One other definition is that it is the process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. If I have information, as I am doing now, I have information on the concept or the definition of communication, and I'm doing so to you as students so that you would understand. In fact, I'm doing it in such a way that you would understand. It is also worth noting that the process of sharing it is also the process of sharing meaning. That's another definition of communication, the process of sharing meaning. But we need to note that meaning is the heart of communication or the communication process. Because if you communicate information to someone and the person doesn't make any meaning out of what you have said, then unfortunately, communication has not taken place. So basically, meaning is the heart of the communication process. Now we move on to types of communication. We can put communication into 2 types, and this is based on the focus of the author. So we shall talk first about communication based on channel. In fact, when we talk of channel, we want to mean that the means or the way through which the information is packaged and sent. So we shall first take a look at, under communication based on channel, we shall take a look at verbal communication. When we talk of verbal communication, it has to do with spoken language. And language can be either spoken or oral. It can either be written or oral. When I want to give you information, I can write using maybe WhatsApp or whatever. I can even write on the board and I'll communicate to you. Sometimes I would have to speak with you and tell you whatever information I have. One other type of communication based on channel is called non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication. The word or the phrase is non-verbal. If something is non-verbal, then it has nothing to do with language. So we can think of gestures, we can think of body language, we can think of symbols, and we can also think of colors. For example, if I frown, you understand what I mean. If I shake my shoulders, I think you understand what I mean equally. And then, if I use a symbol, for example, a symbol like the use of the traffic light, it also conveys meaning to whoever the communication is meant for. Apart from that, color or colors also communicate to us. For example, if somebody is in white, we can conclude that the person is happy or is in a happy mood. If somebody is in red, the person is either mourning a loved one or something else. Black is also meant to communicate to us or to tell us that the person is mourning. So apart from gestures, body language, and symbols, colors also communicate to us. Now, another type of communication, and this communication type is based on style and purpose. The first one was based on channel, the means through which the information is sent. But this one is communication based on style and purpose. And under style and purpose, we have two types of communication. The first is formal communication, and then the second is informal communication. When we talk of formal communication, we mean that we are talking to, or we are communicating to, whether written or oral, to somebody who is superior, somebody who is not our co-equal. The person is not our mate if we are students. So in formal communication, for example, when you are asked, let's assume that an incident occurred in the dormitory, and then being an eyewitness, you are asked to write to the disciplinary committee to explain what happened. In such a case, because the people who make up the disciplinary committee are not your classmates, you are going to write formally. It is official. So in that case, we use formal communication. And when it comes to formal communication, a lot goes into formal communication. For example, the language or your choice of words should be formal and polite. There is no need for you to use jargon and slang. It is also important to go straight to the point without beating about the bush. You don't go and skirt around the issue before you say what you want to say. So you go straight to the point and communicate whatever information you have. Now, the second type based on style and purpose is called informal communication. When we talk of informal communication, it sends us back to the days when we wrote letters to our friends. Whenever we write letters to our friends, those who are our mates, we call them informal letters or informal or friendly letters. So a friendly letter is an example, a typical example of an informal communication. At the workplace, informal communication can go on. For example, when teachers are on break and then they sit in the staff room or elsewhere to chat, they are communicating informally. So that is another example of an informal communication. So when workers are on break and they sit and then they chat, we consider it as informal. So that's a typical example of informal communication. So this brings us to the end of lesson 1 of LLS 152. In our next lesson, we shall take a look at ways in which we can communicate effectively and also barriers to effective communication. If you have questions, do not hesitate to ask them. in the Google Classroom. See you next week for lesson 2.